Hello and welcome to Frank's School. 151st day of the 5th year, first video. My health is coming back. Both shoulders work. I actually doing pretty well right now. And I'm getting, ever closer to the end of these prequels for a trip called Portugal and the Alps. And this would be 3J, the third trip, and up the letter J. Couple things to look back on before I go on. I can be brief today. I said that Innsbruck was the only city, or I didn't know if I said it was the only one, but it was so alpine that everywhere you looked, you're looking up at the Alps all around the high mountains. Well, Grenoble in France may be like that too. I was never in Grenoble. I went by it on a tour bus, and I had often thought that it might have a similar feeling, a very small city, completely surrounded by mountains. Yeah, I suppose if I had a chance, I would go to Grenoble. Another thing, officines. I've been going through my books since my health has been not so good for working outside. I've been staying in the warm and sorting out my books. Well, officinas, workshops. This is back in Lisbon at the Museum of Decorative Arts. I mentioned that in this trip back in Lisbon we'd gone through the shops. Officinas means shops, and when I revisited it, the museum, I even got João Manuel Borges Azevedo was my guide, and he signed this book, expensive book. But anyway, it's about the officinas themselves, and I'll just get some idea. Here's the wood carver. All of those in basically under one roof in one building. It was wonderful. All right, that's kind of looking back. Another thing, when I mentioned seeing those models of farmhouses, well, I don't know how many years ago it was now, that my daughter was working for a congressman, and she had access to the library, the United States Library of Congress, which has basically every book known to man, or practically, and she could get books out for me, and she'd gotten me a book called Schweitzer Bauernhaus, Swiss Farmhouse, and I photocopied it. It won't do to try to show this all to you now, but I came across it, and I thought, well, I'd show that to you too. Like I say, maybe it would just tantalize you to show you some of these images, but they're drawings, not photographs, and it's a good study. And my German still is not good enough that I can very easily read it, but the pictures say so much. All right. And finally, this is, I guess, sort of catching up on those trades that I said I saw those woodcuts, and that began a lifelong interest in the trades and how shops looked at the time. Well, on my school and my YouTube channel, Frank's School, if you would go to playlists and go to the list the trades, I deal with that subject specifically in 10 videos, I think it is, so you could do that. All right, my subject today, I said I could be quick, and I really think I can. Innsbruck, now Innsbruck, this city that's surrounded by mountains, well, there's a way that within like 15 minutes out of that city, you can be on top of a mountain. The key words are Hungerberg. Hungerberg, that's a district of the city, which there's like what do they call it, a Luftbahn, I always have trouble with the English word for this. It's one of those cars that hangs on a cable. You can go from downtown up to the Hungerberg. I think that's and now there's a little railroad. But that's just a stopping spot. Then you get on an aerial tram or whatever up to the Nordkette. And if you would Google that with images, that's the easier thing to do. I don't know if I'll give you the link, because all you have to do is just type that in, Google Images. You will see what it looks like from up there. And right out of the center of Innsbruck, as I said, in 15 minutes, basically warm the whole way. I mean, you'd want to bundle up, of course, because you're going up on that mountain. But it takes you up, and I guess it's for skiing. I mean, it must be. But it was in the summer, and although I skied as a youth, that's not my interest now. The thing is, up there was a view toward the south of the Tyrolean Alps, and that was formative. It was probably many, many years before I saw something like that again, and I had never seen anything quite like that before. Remember, I'd been living in Brazil, basically starved from what I would think of as real mountains, starved for green, starved for water. I mean, it was dry, arid, thorny, forested. There were mountains in Nordkette, but that view, it just kind of called to me. Oh, I was looking to into the Tyrol, and then the Dolomites are off to the left. The Italian Dolomites are off to the left. That view, and you can see that view if you do as I said right there. If you just go to images, you'll see it. Formative. I did not forget it, and I have been drawn. I guess it was maybe. Well, I'll explain about that later. It was quite a few years before I got back into back to Europe at all. All right. Then after that, there is one other thing I'll just mention. I've never been able to find this, but it's a memory, and it's a bit formative. That I remember being in a little restaurant-like thing in an undercroft of a masonry arches over our heads, open to the street, and it seems to me the Inn River was there, and the Inn River, incidentally, is gray. Its color, and it's not pollution, it's limestone being carried out of those Alps. It's an amazing color. I thought of the blue Danube, I don't know, the gray Inn. But anyway, that experience of being in I guess you'd call it a cellar, maybe, but it was open. It was, if I'm ever back in Innsbruck, well, and I may be, I would try a little bit harder to try to find where was that restaurant, because that was a neat experience. Anyway, the next day we got on a train, took the train to Munich. During the layover, we went into a museum in, well, it wasn't a layover. We had a little bit of time before we took our plane. We went into Munich and went into a museum. I have not been back to the museum since, and it was okay. It was nice. It was fine. It was a museum. And then got on a plane and flew to London. And I'll have just a little bit to say about London. But after that, we were to the United States and on home. On to home of the time, Catalã de Rocha, Brazil. Bye for now.